3D consciousness is where your consciousness and your mindset has been conditioned by your peers. So your mum, your dad, people that were around you have conditioned you. So your thoughts, weirdly, are not even your thoughts. How weird is that? Because we live in a reality where there is a collective consciousness. So say, for example, you go to a mall, right? You go shopping. You can be amongst other people and start thinking and feeling thoughts that are not even yours. That's what it means by collective consciousness, that we are all one frequency, but we're all at different levels, and this all depends on our conditioning. So you know that if you're in 3D consciousness, or 3-dimensional, should I say, is that we have been conditioned. We're not awakened. It's the first entry point of dimensions, realities, frequencies. Now, D stands for dimension, which means how something is measured. So if we look at a width, we look at the length. Now, with quantum physics, we can't do that as in like, all right, I want this room, what width and measure, you can't do that. So it's just, we've come to understand that a dimension in a 3D aspect is that it is physical. We're living in this physical reality. So my body is physical, but my emotions and my energy is non-physical. So we're part non-physical, part physical. So when I was born, I'm this light, and then how I've then started to evolve and grow, 1000% was 3D to start with. So when I started getting to the age of like 29, that's when I started realising, and then I bridged myself to the 4D. I started getting interested in esoterics, even though from being a child that I'd always, sensed that there was something more than what the 5 senses that we're born with are perceiving. And this is my life's mission now. What I do is to help awaken the unawakened, but it's not coming from a preaching perspective. It's just, if that's something you want in, then this is something I specialise in. So when we're 3D and when we start realising about 4D, so at age of about 29, 30, I realised that I wanted to ask questions. So you're going to know when you are ready to jump from 3D consciousness, because we start realising that I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to do this. God, this job just isn't lighting me up. It just isn't doing what I want. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. Why do I have to do this? This is when you know that you're starting to be awakened, and that you're starting to almost, it's like a level up to 4D. So in the 4D, which I would class as the bridge, the 4D consciousness, it's a funny one really, because we're realising that what we've been taught is not the truth. It's a dictatorship in a sense, and it can get where we can get really lonely and isolated, because the friends that we've had or the people that we've had, there's something amiss now, and it's just not in full alignment. So this is where we've got to be careful, because like I said, the 4D, it's the bridge. So it's not a place you're going to stay, but it's giving you an entry point. Right, this is 3D, there's a bridge. Do I walk to 4D, which is going to be totally different, because you're going to go into this realm where it can be quite trickery, because not everything you see is going to be a truth. So you've got to be careful, and you've got to use your discernment in 4D consciousness, because you're not that long away you was in 3D consciousness, which is your mindset was very limited and very controlled. Then, as we start going through the 4D, the materials from the 3D just don't do it for us anymore. We get this feeling where I'm not really bothered about that anymore. We start to realise that, every time I want something and I get it, why do I want something more, and why do I want something more? That is 3D. But you've got a mixture of 4D in there, because you're even looking at why you're doing that. Where before in 3D you just do it. You just want a nice car. You don't look or get deep into it. I just want a nice car because it looks like I'm of importance if I'm driving a BMW or whatever. But when we start coming to 4D, we start questioning the 3D. It's not going to make me happy. So then 4D if we stick, because 4D usually is where we start having a bit of a spiritual awakening, we have the shadow self, we start, you know, losing the people that we once thought were really good for us and not, and it can be really, really painful. So if any of you guys are at that point right now, please stick with it. Please. I promise you it'll get better. I've been here so many times as I've moved up. And I'm not going to say it gets any easier, because it doesn't. What you do find is that when you're in that like low ebb, you know, because you're even more connected to source, you're even more connected to a higher consciousness, that you know it's all happening for a reason. So the awareness softens the blow. That's all it does. It doesn't make it any easier. And then when we get to 5D consciousness, which is unity, this is where we come out of, guys, where we don't feel like we need to compete. You know, we start looking at soul tribes, and what that means is where they're all awakened, and you know, there's no jealousy, there's no lack, because remember, when we go back to 3D, that's lack, jealousy, insecurity. You know, oh, your house is bigger than my house, or my children go to private school, well, mine don't, you know. All that bullshit just goes, because it's not important. It's really not important. What's important is having that level of, and just so you know, I'm not just talking this because it sounds good. I 3 times have had houses, had partnerships, and lost it all, and been to the point where I've had nothing, absolutely nothing. And this is where, if you can stick through it, this is where you can really find happiness, because happiness, guys, is never going to be in your money and your job. It's never going to be in your children. It's never going to be in your pension pots, your holidays. It's never, that is not happiness. That can sometimes just be a distraction of yourself, and that's why people then strive so much for money, because they just want to have options where they don't have to sit and be with themselves. Sounds grim, but it's true. So if you are going through a financial crisis at the moment, or you feel like you're absolutely on your backside, trust me, this is a good thing, because if you can become happy with having nothing, that you've been trained in the 3D, then you are one above pretty much a lot of other people. And that's not coming from, oh, you're above as in ha, it's you've broke through the bullshit of the 3D matrix. So I'm going to give you a hair hug. But this is my own understanding, and I hope it resonates with you guys, of what 3D, 4D and 5D. Now, the thing is, I could go even more and more and more into it, but I think this is enough without losing people. But this is, for me, just where these dimensions sit, and that we are right now, honestly, guys, going through such a big awakening right now. And we want, you know, the collective consciousness is really doing a lot of work into getting people to come away from 3D, because 3D sits in a really low vibration. As humans, we should not be sat in 3D consciousness, we should be sat in 5D, helping each other, supporting each other, coming away from lack mindset, and like I said, conquering to divide. We're human beings, and we are very tribal led, and it's about supporting one another and allowing all our own individual unique gifts to build a better community and a better world. And this is something that I'll always, the day I die, be supporting and hoping that, even if it's just 0.5%, when you look at the big grand scheme of things, that I've helped in some way. So I'm going to leave that there. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on my next video. Mwah.